I just tweeted at him to let him know that we're coming. All right, so we're going to get coffee with Joe Chernov. Joe is a former boss of mine. I got to know Joe very well over the last couple of years. He's the CMO of InsightSquared, and we're going to kick off the first season of Coffee with a CMO with Joe here in Boston. I said, see you in 2 minutes. I'll be the guy with the camera. The best part about whenever you film videos like this is people think that you're famous. Like anytime somebody's filming a video on the street, everybody just looks and they're like, I wonder what is that? Is that for the news or something like that? No, just drift. Don't worry about it. What's up, man? That's all I wear. That's what everybody says to me.
Yeah.
You're a t-shirt guy yourself.
I was gonna, but then I thought we'd look like twins and it would be ridiculous. Like, hey, t-shirt.
All right, so this is Joe. Joe's a CMO at InsightSquared. Joe was my boss at a prior company, and I got to know Joe well over the last couple of years. He gives me a hard time about a lot of stuff, and that's why I love him, but I'm excited to talk because I think he's going to give us some different perspectives, and we're not just going to talk about the traditional marketing. How do you describe like your take on my?
Because I gave you the most plush.
I love. You did.
Role.
I did have the best. I had the best. I had the best job.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm a fool for doing the right thing because the right thing doesn't ultimately suit me.
Right.
So I say, like, at times I'm in conflict. Joe CMO and Joe generic executive are in conflict. Yeah. And generally I try to side with Joe generic executive because it's more often than not the right thing for the business.
Well, because it's also hard, like, it's hard to get up there and like look like you missed the metric and be like, no, but look at all this other stuff we did. Like,
making excuses.
I'd rather have those conversations, like hit the number you were supposed to do and then talk about how we should change the way we do it.
I was like, the cost of empowerment. Let's look at micromanaging versus empowerment, right? Mm-hmm. The cost of empowerment is paid in decisions that weren't the ones you would have made, right? And you've got to be able to come to terms with the fact that, like, I'm going to give up some decisions that aren't what I would have wanted. Mm-hmm. But in exchange for that, you get a more motivated employee that's going to generate more work. Yep. They're going to be a better addition culturally because they're going to be happier. Yep. And you're going to get more throughput. Yep. So if you have 5% of decisions are decisions you disagree with, who cares?
Let's talk about interviews. You're talking about interviewing people?
Yeah.
Is that what you want to talk about?
No, like this kind of interview.
Oh, you want to talk about this kind of interview? Tell me. I have thoughts on this too.
I think interviewing people is a skill.
Yeah.
And I think it's an overlooked skill.
Uh-huh.
I don't mean hiring people, but like this sort of interview. And as marketing gets more casual, like as business marketing gets more casual, and is more about like brand and people, right? I think that a lot of good ideas get blown in the last mile because like the marketing person says, well, I get to interview them.
Do you ever feel like you go and do interviews with people and you're like this is awful? Like, I feel like most people, what they do is they say they have their 5 questions. Like, I have my 5 questions I'm going to ask Joe Chernov.
No matter what he says.
No matter what he says, right? And then what they do is like the second you answer that is then they go next question, on to the next question. Where it's like the real stuff, which is like why I wanted to do this and try this interview series is because I just want to have a conversation and see what comes out of it. And like the real good interviews, I think, are when it actually is a conversation. It's not an interview when it comes back, you know?
And so like with the people that you're inviting to participate, like you can sort of go wherever that conversation is going to go. Sure. But if you're sitting down with somebody that's like a scientist or an entertainer, like you have such limited domain knowledge that you can't just take it where they take it. And that's why a professional journalist that like does the research and has a background to be able to adapt is why you
knows that talent. That's a good point. And knows the space, right? Like. Yeah,
I think from Rolling Stone to interview them.
Because they can know, hey, yeah, that thing that you did in '96, like that was interesting. I thought you meant interviewing people. This is a better topic.
Yeah.
I think that's important for like, and then going forward as a skill in marketing, like that's very underrated. There's going to be more podcasts. There's going to be more video interviews. There's going to be more blog interviews. Like everyone has done. I mean, you've been doing this for a bunch of years now. Like I could probably go and Google. There's probably 55 questions with Joe Chernov type of interviews out there. Like
but
you can't
pretty
just
much next question.
You can't do that format. Yeah. Let's talk about forms versus let's talk about forms. You had a tweet. What did your tweet say? This was last night. Do you remember what it said?
I don't know. I just say.
You're a prolific tweeter, by the way.
Yeah,
I think like when
but like it used to. I don't think anybody even wants to converse anymore.
Not anymore. Twitter was, because I remember you used to have this. You used to have this tweet pinned to your Twitter profile that was like, the best time to call me is email.
You know, that was a subtweet. The funny thing is that was a subtweet. Like somebody called me and he was like kind of hammering me to try to
When's the best time?
And I responded in email and I said, dude, the best time to call me is email. And then I wrote him again. I said, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to subtweet you right now. So I gave him a heads up.
I remember that was pinned. It had like, thousands and thousands of retweets. I love that. Oh, there's the t-shirt design. Tweets and replies. Let's see. I feel like I just feel like when you tweet, you're like thinking about it. I just am like, just say what. Okay, you said somebody's talking about forms. You said the form is the symptom. The problem is a lead-centric or lead-only KPI for marketing departments. Again, show me how I'm measured, and I'll show you how I behave.
Yeah, so that was Tom Wentworth. He was saying something that was very pro-drift, so that's why you noticed it, right?
Yeah, no, he tagged me in it. He said companies spend hundreds of thousands on the CMS and design just to drive someone to the same old tired fill out this form. Yeah, that could have been a drift ad. I wonder what a conversation.
I knew you liked that one.
Yeah. So he said, or conversation only at drift at DKR. And before I could even chime in, you responded. So.
Yeah, I covered you there.
Yeah, thank you.
Look, my point is, I say, show me how I'm measured, I'll show you how I behave a lot. And
I think that's a thing that doesn't get talked about enough, which is like, why do you do what you do? Because look at what you're being held accountable for. Like
most bad performers, a meaningful percentage of bad performers are likely bad performers because they've been given the wrong incentives.
Or they have no clear metric for the thing that they own. Yeah.
And so I'd rather almost give somebody no clear metric than the wrong one. And so like, we were talking about this where I have 4, should I go into this again?
Yeah, right. Please, because who knows about the audio. So
okay. So we were talking about this before. I look at what I do for marketing. It may vary from company to company, but like me at InsightSquared, I do 4 things. I try to generate demand.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I also take care of our customers and try to keep our customers happy, keep them longer, turn them into advocates. Okay. So customer marketing.
Yep.
I have a brand to take care of.
Yep.
And part and parcel to brand is a community around that brand. Okay.
Yep.
And then the third is it's sort of like a magician knows what card you're going to pull from the deck. Like I know where we're going to take the business in the future.
Right.
And so there's message seeding. Yeah. There's
teaching people about future stuff that you might launch.
Grooming that makes the market more receptive to future product introduction. And so these are the things you try to do.
Yeah.
But all of my metrics are around demand creation.
Or like you had 1, 2, 3, 4. You could be really good at 2, 3, 4, but if you're not good at the first one, you're probably not keeping your job. Like
you're definitely not keeping your job.
Right.
So you'll never have a chance to show the other ones.
Yeah.
And so like, just to be really basic here. Yeah. Do I put 25% budget, 25% budget, 25, 25? No. And so you starve these things at the expense of this.
Yep.
And is this the only thing that matters? Yeah. No. Does it even matter disproportionately to the others? You could argue no, especially in a venture-backed business where the revenue is not the primary need when you have funding. Like look at Drip. You guys are doing an awesome job on the branding, and that's going to pay off later, right? That's where you're going to get the acceleration.
Right. It's not. Yeah, that's an important point. It's not like you and I started a company and it's self-funded, and if we don't hit our revenue goal this month, we are not going to make payroll. Yeah. Of course, we don't want to miss that, but it's still like the runway is years, not a week, right?
We talked about HubSpot in the blog,
yeah.
right? Like that's where those guys had unbelievable foresight,
yep.
right? Mike, Dharmesh,
yep.
and Brian.
Yep.
If they,
yep.
If they took that blog,
yep.
and on day one or on day, 90, tried to use that blog as a way to spam people, their subscriber list, and tried to take their blog subscribers and sell them stuff overnight, they would have strip mined that asset. They played it cool, right? They let it grow for years. And then they had an asset, and they had something that was a moat. It was an unfair advantage, and they knew enough to not strip mine it. When we started the sales blog, I remember talking to Mike about what metrics we needed to hit before we thought about commercializing the blog.
Like turning it into lead gen and having
for a while, just build an audience. And nobody knows that better than Mike.
And so what was your goal? Like when you launched the sales blog, was it traffic?
At first, it was traffic.
No leads. You said, who cares about leads right now?
We didn't put, show me how measure, show me how behave. If we put a lead gen KPI on it, what are we going to do? We're going to jam forms into it. We wanted to build an audience that we could monetize later.
So how does that apply to, you said some of this stuff earlier, which is like, what you're measured on today, it's not leads. It's something about, you came up with your own kind of definition for it?
So leads is, a lead is a unit of demand, right? But really we're in the business of generating demand. It just can come in different units for different companies. Our unit of demand.
One could be a demo request versus versus a free tool, try a free tool, versus a goes to an event, goes to a webinar. Those are all different. They all have different conversion rates.
Those are all different types. So what we have is, instead of leads, we have an alert. And an alert is it's an engagement, a type of engagement that we either create as marketing or detect as marketing, and it happens on an owned account. So our sales team sells in a named account strategy, and they have a lot of named accounts. This isn't like Fortune 50, this is the Fortune 50,000. But those accounts are assigned, they're in territory, and they're named. Marketing gets credit when we generate an alert, a type of engagement on one of those owned accounts. There are 3 types of alerts, and the types are designated by...
Did you come up with this? This is a new thing that you guys
came up with.
I like it.
And the types are stratified by historical conversion rates. So we have same-day alerts. The name of the alert type is the SLA. Same-day alert means, as a sales rep,
you got to touch them same day. And what's an example of it? Is that like a demo request or something?
Demo request, same-day alert. At the low end, same-day alerts have a 6% alert to conversion rate, alert to operate. At the high end, like 18%. So in that band is same-day alert, and they've got 24 hours to follow up. Actually, close a business, 24 hours if it happens after 4 p.m. The next one down is next day alerts. These are 3% to 6% conversion rate.
So you might get it that day, and as a rep, this is, hey, tomorrow, here's what you're going to do.
And you can follow up that day, but you're not going to get roughed up if you do it the next day. And then the third type is, we call a check alert. And that might be, we send a piece of direct mail. It'd be kind of weird to call somebody and say, hey, you get that coffee cup?
Just checking in. Are you measuring, are you tracking intent from like other sources outside of your website too? Like you said, because you said there's 2 types of marketing alerts, right? One of them is somebody did something with you, and then or you detected that something else is happening.
That's a good question. Yes. So when you think of lead gen, you think marketing only gets credit if it produced a lead. If somebody filled out that form, if you hoodwinked somebody into giving you their personal information, they didn't say Mickey Mouse at Disneyland.com, right? We also my job is to try to help sales close deals faster. And so we use data providers that give us signal as to if one of those 50,000 accounts is doing something that our sales team should be interested in. For example, if you're looking at our competitors on G2 Crowd, and
same thing.
You're looking at a competitor to InsightSquared on G2 Crowd, that information gets fed into our CRM, triggers an alert, that's a next day alert, has a high conversion rate, and they have to follow up within 24, within essentially by the close business the next day. That was a product that G2 Crowd productized that 100% came from our request based on our alerting system.
That came from you?
Yeah.
We use it. It's amazing.
So I called them and they said they were productizing, like, we'll send you a list of people that are looking at your listing. Yeah. My response is, I don't really care if they're looking at my listing. I mean, I do, but they're probably on my website too. They've alerted another way. You know what I want to know? Are they looking at brand X's listing? That would be interesting for me. And they said, would you pay for it? And I said, starting tomorrow.
Sure.
It's the only thing I'll pay for.
So is that a demand gen? Your demand gen person owns that as a channel?
Our ops person owns that because our ops person owns the tech stack, and it's an API partnership, and so she is responsible for the API. We could talk about I have one more question on this, then I want to go to the other. So then you have these buckets by conversion rate, and so you have your next day alert is 3 to 6% conversion rate. Could that be multiple sources as long as they convert between 3 and 6% and they get in that bucket? Yeah.
Okay. So it could be a webinar, it could be an event. The conversion rate is what you use to say, whatever, 6 to 16, 3 to 6, and then 0
to create the tranches.
Yeah.
But what we just rolled this out.
I like
this
that.
Is like V2.
No, I like that a lot.
We just rolled this out. What we're going to do next is we've got to figure out now is like, are there too many in one bucket?
Yeah.
And there's no magic. 6 is not a magic number here. Right. It's just we looked at a histogram and it looked like
because it could be a 1% conversion rate, but a rep is going to have to touch all of those, which is not going to work.
The trick here, the secret to all of this is the check alert. So the last tier is a check alert, and it means like there's no SLA. Yeah. You don't have to follow up on this. Yep. But we strongly encourage you.
But I bet you if you look at your best reps, the percentage of them that are doing the check stuff is probably.
Or if you're on plan and you're not using your check alerts, well, like, are you really in it? Are you really hustling? Are you really trying to close deal? Like, the check alerts is a form of marketing entrapment. If you're not checking them,
you mean if you're on plan, like you could be blowing the number out.
If you were on a plan,
on a performance plan,
if you're on a performance plan, it's a great tool for management to say, like, look, they're on a performance plan, but they're rummaging around these check alerts. They're doing the right thing. That person is going to keep their job.
I love it.
If they're on a performance plan and they're complaining about pipe and marketing's not giving support, and they're not rummaging around this tranche, then are they in the blame game or are they really trying to close deals?
Because it's an easy game if you only work the leads that close at 16%. Like, that's what we all want to do.
Exactly.
This is exactly why I want to do this, because this is the deep stuff. All right, one more thing, then you got to go. How did you transitioned your career as a marketing leader from like content guy to like now you do AB. Now your thing is ABM. And I think of you as your CMO. ABM is your channel now, but like, what was the transition from being this content leader to going to a company and having to basically throw out the playbook that got you to where you're at?
Yeah, I was conflicted.
Was that like a holy shit moment, or did you know like, if I want to keep growing, this is what I got to do?
Like, I just want to solve a problem for the business.
Yeah.
And that content model, it was the wrong model for InsightSquared.
Yeah.
But
also you like. Because before I knew you because I was reading your stuff, I was following what you're doing, speaking, whatever. I think content was the channel at the time, like 2008 to 2012-ish was like a sweet spot, which is like you could grow a massive funnel on content. Today, everybody has a blog, everybody has a podcast, everybody has video. There's so much noise and content. Nobody's at home being like, you know what I wish I had more content from brands.
So I think there are two dimensions to this, and you've nailed one of them. Like, with each new blog that gets spun up, it becomes incrementally more difficult for your signal to be heard.
Yep.
And especially if you're marketing to sales and marketing, where like those industries have really been, there's a lot of noise in there.
So much.
The second is the nature of the business itself. The content model makes most sense when you have an enormous addressable market, because you don't have that many false negatives. If you can sell to anybody, then anybody who comes to your blog is a potential prospect.
Right.
If you're my father-in-law, who sells software to nuclear power plants, it's a very constrained market, right? And so most of the readers of his blog, if we were to have one, would be false positives, because it's such a specialized industry. And so the difficulty is most companies are in the middle. InsightSquared is in the middle. Say our addressable market is 50,000 accounts. A blog is helpful for brand. A blog is helpful for building community, but it cannot be long-term your primary lead source in the way that it is if you're, a HubSpot that has an enormous addressable market. I equipped once that HubSpot doesn't care if you're Mac Trucks or a guy named Mac with a truck.
Right.
They'll sell to both of you.
And the product can work for both people.
And we care very deeply if you're Mac Trucks.
You need to
versus
find the
Mac
50,000 companies with a sales ops person in the U.S. or whatever.
That has a board that expects fast growth, that looks for very specific types of reporting, very specific KPIs.
So that makes it obvious. Like that's where you're going to start, right? So how do you think of? It's not that you're not creating content. You still care about your brand. Like how do you figure out how to invest in content?
Yeah, we look at it as the theme, our sort of internal ethos is content that serves multiple masters. So I need to create a piece of content. Like in the content marketing world, they would talk about atomize your content, and it would be like on a blog, and then simplified for Twitter, and then it can be a brand's Facebook post, and then Medium came along and summarize it on Medium. It's the same idea, but it's not atomizing it so much as saying, I need content that there is a version of it for the blog, but then there is a more product relevant version of it for the sales team, and then a heavily like how-to version of it for the customer team. So it's not about atomizing it in the way that like adapting it for different channels, but think about marketing as an overlay across the entire customer journey. That's essentially what those 4 pieces were that I talked about. And if it's an overlay on top of the entire customer journey and I have limited resources, I need a piece of content to be adaptable to multiple stages.
What else should we talk about before you go?
Good you want.
I'm good. What's one thing that's still driving you nuts in marketing? Like when you see it?
Hey, look, it's that forms the form stuff, and that leads, that top of funnel has sucked up all the air in the room. Makes me crazy. That makes me nuts. What else? I'll tell you a really good piece of advice I got.
Yeah, give me some
advice.
advice.
I think about this a lot. Like, especially take Drift, you guys are growing really quickly. I remember I said to my former CEO when I was at Eloqua, for a while I reported to him, and I was grousing about like my workload or something. And he asked about how I was doing, how I was performing in hiring. Like I had a number of open recs, and he was asking how close I was to filling them. And I was like, Joe, I can't get to those. I have all these other things to do. And he said, you're upside down on this. The only thing that matters is hiring the right people. You hire the right people, and everything else falls into place. And I was like, he's got a really good point. I love
that. That on top of what you said to me when you were outside, which is like the micromanaging piece, like those are the 2 things to unlock, I feel like, right? Like the right people and then letting them do what they were hired to do. And then your job is almost like the GM that has to move around the right pieces. But you're not out, you're not batting, you're not in the lineup, right?
Well, if you don't get the people, you have to.
You have to be, but then that's a problem. Because then when you're in the lineup, you become a bottleneck. You don't have the bandwidth to actually do it, right? Like you have.
And then it throws you though that, all right, so let's say you succeed at extracting yourself from the lineup.
Sure.
Now this is the time where we do sports metaphors.
Okay, that's fine.
Everybody rolls their eyes.
That's
right?
fine.
But you become the GM, and you're hovering above it, and you're just like moving around players, right? It's really hard then to figure out if you're doing a good job or not, because you've grown up judging yourself by batting average, on base percentage, home runs, and all of a sudden, like none of those apply to you. And that's one of the areas that new managers and new GMs, if you will, struggle, because all of a sudden you have different metrics, and the old metrics are more familiar, and so you start to seep back into the players on the field.
Okay, one thing before we go, how do you balance? You're a busy exec at a company. You have a growing family. Like, do you believe in this like work-life balance? Is it the Jeff Bezos circle? Is it like what? How do you battle it?
You ready for?
I'm ready. I want to know. Yeah.
Like this is the one I go by, and I'm not saying it's right. Like one night I was like driving late at night, and I heard this radio show on where it was like Ask a Veterinarian, and this woman called, and she said, I have 2 bulldogs. This is true.
I believe it.
She's like, I can't stop them from fighting.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid they're going to hurt each other. And she was really upset.
Yeah.
And the vet said, good news, bad news. Good news is I got an answer. Bad news is you ain't going to like it.
Yeah.
And so the answer was, let them fight.
Yeah.
One of them's going to win.
Yep.
They generally won't hurt each other.
Yep.
And then it gets worse.
Yep.
the one that wins eats first.
Yep.
The one that wins gets let out the door first.
Yep.
You reinforce that hierarchy. They are comfortable with the hierarchy.
Yep.
I think that family and work, unless you let one of them win, will always tear each other apart. And you've got to pick the one that wins and then feed that one first. I reach a juncture in my career when I verbalize like family comes first.
Yeah.
And I try to feed it first. I try to spend my time there first, and I don't feel guilty about it anymore.
Yeah, I like that. All right, let's. That's a perfect place to wrap. You gotta go. It's been great. I appreciate it.
Was this what you wanted?
Yeah, it was exactly what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Exactly what I wanted to do. So thank you.
All right.
All right.